Hi everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna go over a teeny tiny little bag. It's actually supposed to be a really big bag, but it's like the tiny version of a big bag. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Today, we're going over the Dainty Duffle. And this itty bitty pattern comes to us from Carolina Little Stitches. I know, I'm melting as well. I'm a puddle. It's a miniature duffel. And you might be wondering, what do you need a miniature duffel bag for? What do you need a miniature backpack for? Okay, because it's cute. It's really cute. And you can hook it on to your bag. You can store small things on it. I'll show you what I have in my bag in just a moment. It's absolutely adorable and it's really fun to make. And honestly, I always love these miniature bags because I feel like it encourages you to make the bigger version. Like I've never made like a proper large duffel bag. And after kind of seeing how the construction goes for this one, I'm like, well, I think I want to give it a try. So this pattern comes to us from Carolina Little Stitches. If you haven't already checked out their patterns, go look. We have made the tiny backpack. We've made the little tote. There are so many adorable patterns. They also have regular size patterns as well, especially if you are a book lover. There are some great options over there for you. But let's go through this real quickly. There are 3 styles available. They have like a 2-tone one, which I know you're probably like, why didn't I do that? I do 2-tone everything. I don't know, I'm mixing it up. Honestly, I wanted something that was really quick too. So I'm just doing the single panel. So for this, you're gonna have 2 outer panels, and then you have your 2 side panels that are stinking adorable. You have these 2 handles. You could use 1/2-inch wide webbing, or you can just make your own handles, and so today I'm making my own handles. When we separate the handles, you see you can open up the top zipper, and you have a fully lined little inside. I was gonna show you, I just have some, these are my favorite mints, I have them inside of there. We are using binding to close off the sides over there, but it is not very noticeable, so if you're worried about binding and how it might look a little sloppy, this is not binding you see, so it's okay to be sloppy. So thank you so much to Carolina Little Stitches for allowing me to feature your patterns on the channel. Like I already said, she is the queen of tiny. She makes the most adorable patterns for the smallest things. Also other patterns as well. Go take a look. If there's something that she has that you'd like to see on the channel, please let me know. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shout outs, anything at all, leave them down in the comments section. What else would you like to see miniaturized? Because she's done a backpack, she's done a tote, and now we have a duffel bag. What else do we need? Do we need like a clutch? Like a cute clutch? Oh no, she's much better with words than I am. We need some sort of like a fancy bag. Like a fancy bag, right? As a miniature. I don't know. What do you think? Alrighty guys, let's get started. So for this tutorial, we're gonna go straight into the pattern pieces because it's really scrap friendly. I would say no more than a fat quarter of lining, a fat quarter of exterior is gonna be fine. For your exterior material, you can really get away with anything. Any really stiff vinyl, any really thick vinyl is going to be challenging. So I'm gonna be using a kind of medium to lighter weight vinyl, and I'll be using that for the exterior, and I'll be using that for the strap. I am gonna be building my own strap today. You can use webbing if you prefer. For the lining, I will be using water resistant canvas. And then for my stabilizer, I'm gonna be using, I think this is called like Wonder Fuse, but it is an adhesive kind of fusible fleece, Decovil very lightweight, but still structured stabilizer. So there are 3 styles, and I'm gonna be doing style 3, which is probably the most basic of the 3 styles. We're not gonna do that little accent on the bottom. I just really like that idea of like a mini gym bag, and gym bags a lot of times don't have that little accent. So that's why I wanted to do that. So you're gonna need 2 cuts of your exterior main body panel. You're gonna need 2 cuts of your exterior gusset, and then also 2 cuts of your lining gusset, 1 cut of your lining main body panel, 2 cuts for your straps. Now this is if you're building your own. If you're using webbing, you're still gonna need 2 cuts. They won't need to be the size. And then 2 cuts for your D-ring connectors. And then I have 2 pieces of stabilizer here for the main body lining, and then 2 pieces of stabilizer for those side panels. I would say if you're using a vinyl, stabilizer is completely optional. You can probably just not even add it. I'm going to, but again, I don't think it's really that necessary. Here's all the hardware for today's pattern. I have a zipper. This just needs to be wider than the panel, so let me see how mine is. I would say like 6.5 to 7.5 inches long. That is gonna be wider than it needs to be, but I like to use that. And then I have some 1-inch wide water resistant canvas binding. I have a number 5 zipper pull to go with my number 5 zipper, 2 1/2-inch wide D-rings. These are completely optional. If you don't have them, you don't need them. but they are fun to add to the side of the bag. And then I have 2 sets of rivets, my bag tag, of course, and then again, totally optional, a key ring and a little hook. This is to hook it to the straps on the top so I can just dangle it off of my other bags. All right, here are my tools. Rivet press, as always, and a hole punch. And then I have my die set for my rivets. The thread I'll be using through the needle today is from Wizardry Stitchery. It is color Christmas Red, and it is a Tex 45 weight thread. In the bobbin, though, I have a lighter weight polyester thread, and that is a Mara 100. The needle I'm using is a Microtex 8012. I have a lighter, as always, to clean up any loose ends, a seam ripper, a few different marking tools. I have an air erasing marker, I have a chalk marker, and a silver ink pen, just because you never really know which one you're going to need, and it's always nice to have them all available. A stiletto is going to be very useful at the sewing machine, especially with those curves. A turning tool, just in case. A healthy supply of plastic clips, and then I always like to have both 1/4 inch and 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just adhere my stabilizer to my exterior pieces, and you can see this is just this sticky stabilizer. If you're using any sort of like a nylon, any sort of swishy material that has that nice kind of felt backing on it, not vinyl, but like a bonded nylon or anything like that, don't add this stabilizer to the exterior. Add it to the lining panels instead. You can add this to the water resistant canvas, but I have found that when I add stabilizer, even fusible stabilizer where you use an iron to stick it on, once you turn your bag out, it gets really wrinkly because of that stabilizer and it doesn't come out. Versus a vinyl where it does. It's able to kind of detach a little bit and absorb the wrinkles. I found that nylon material struggles with that. So you can see, I'm just kind of eyeballing this and just centering this on the exterior panels. And I cut my stabilizer for the main panels by about 1/4 of an inch shorter, so it's not quite as tall as the pattern piece, but I found I didn't need it to be that tall. And while I'm here, I'm just going to mark midpoints on the top and bottom of all 4 of these exterior pieces, so the 2 main body panels and the 2 side panels. Okay, you can set all these main exterior panels to the side. So now I am building my own straps using a vinyl. If you are using quilt cotton, then this is not applicable to you. If you are using webbing, then this is not applicable to you. So make sure you skip to the part of the pattern where it is applicable to you. Okay, so grab your straps and your D-ring connectors. And on the wrong side of all 4 of these panels, mark a midpoint line going along the very center lengthwise. Then grab some double-sided tape and run your double-sided tape. I'm using 1/4 of an inch wide double-sided tape. Run it right over that midpoint line centered. So do this along all 4 of these pieces. And now, one at a time, remove the paper from the tape. And then you might need clips as well. Gently fold the long raw edge back to meet that midpoint line and tape it to the tape. If you feel like it's not sticking as well as you would like, grab some clips and add the clips to the edges as well. So do this for all 4 pieces. Okay, so I'm gonna set my little D-ring connectors to the side for just a moment. Now I'm gonna do something a little bit different. The pattern says to use this stitch mark on your template here to kind of make a mark on your straps, guiding you where to stitch between, because then we sew this down later. However, I found when I did that method, my straps didn't end up being stitched as high up on the bag as I think they're supposed to be. So I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna grab my main panel for the main body, style 3, and I'm gonna lay it, let's lay it like this, right side up. And you see it has strap placement lines and then it has this little dash line. That's how high I want this to go. I want my straps to go up to there. So I'm gonna use that mark instead, because you can see that mark and this mark are quite a bit different. You could still just use this mark and then just go over your top stitching later, that's right here, but I don't wanna do that. So I'm going to take my strap and I'm just going to line it up with those lines there. And then I'm gonna grab my chalk marker and I'm going to mark where that line is. There we go. And I'm gonna do this for both ends of both straps. And this is just the longer straps. All right, now looking at my 2 straps, and I have those 4 marks, I'm gonna top stitch along the 2 long edges of each strap at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, but only between those 2 marks. I'm going to leave the threads long on each end. So I'm gonna have 4 long threads on each side of each strap, and I'm gonna tie those off on the back. So for now, just top stitch on both of these 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once I have all that done, you can see the red is my top stitching, the white is the back. On the back side, I'm going to pull on that bobbin thread just slightly so I can see the little red top stitching come to the back side. And then I'm gonna pull it back, and I'm gonna do this for all of my bobbin top thread combos. All threads on the back side. Now once I have them on the back side, I'm just going to kind of combine the 2 sides. So 2 threads in each hand, and I'm going to tie 3 very tight knots to seal these. Once you have that knot in place, you can just trim down those tails. It's okay if it's a little messy. The goal is in the next couple steps, we're gonna stitch just a little bit above where that knot is, so you won't even see it in the end. So do this for all of your sets of threads. Okay, and then once I have those threads tied off, looking again at the back side of my strap, I'm gonna grab my 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape, and I'm going to apply the tape right over the raw edges that are not top stitched. So just the ends here. And that's also gonna help hold this in place. And I'm gonna do this for all 4 ends. Okay, your straps are prepped. You can set this to the side. And then grab your D-ring connectors. And on these ones, you can just top stitch along all 4 edges of each one of these at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once your D-ring connectors are done, you can set them to the side. So now let's attach our straps to our main panels. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure in using my template here. I'm gonna measure in from the left, and I'm gonna measure in from the right, and I'm just gonna draw vertical lines using a silver ink pen because I can remove this from vinyl. And I'm just gonna do 2 vertical lines, just the outer edges of these 2 placements for our straps. Okay, and after you do that, just overlay, just to make sure you got that right, because I have a tendency to mess up these simple steps. All right, that looks good. So now, let's start with, this one will be my front main panel. I'm gonna grab one of my straps, and I'm going to lay it right side up, wrong side down, and I'm going to take the paper off of that double-sided tape on the back, and then starting from the bottom, I'm just going to line up, let's see, I'm gonna line up the outer edge. So this is where I made the mistake before. I'm gonna line up the outer edge. The straps are gonna go inside of these 2 vertical lines. So the outer edge is gonna line up with that silver ink pen line. And then the raw edge of my strap is down here on the bottom of the main panel. I'm also gonna use a clip to hold that in place. And then for this right side, I'm gonna attach this little woven label. You could definitely sew on a label or even use a metal label if you'd like, but I'm actually going to attach it to the strap first because it has the tape on it. So I'm just gonna go up here towards the top, maybe just like 1/2 of an inch down from where my stitching starts and stops. And then I'm going to just tape this down to my main panel. Again, the outside of the strap is lined up with that silver ink pen. I'm gonna use a clip up here to hold it. Okay, so that's what one side looks like. I'm gonna repeat this with the other panel and strap, but without the tag. So now I'm gonna take these 2 main panels to the sewing machine, and starting at the bottom of the main panel, I'm gonna top stitch up one side of the strap until I get to where my top stitching is started that I've already done on the strap, and then I'm gonna go over to the other side of the strap and then top stitch down. And I'm gonna do this for all 4 of these straps, just attaching the strap to the main panel. How cute is that looking? And then when it rounds out, just a little duffel bag. It's so super cute. Okay, so now take both of your main panels and lay them right sides together, and we are focused on the bottom edge. So you might find this easier to line up those midpoint marks. Also do your best to line up the straps. I know sometimes they kind of move around, but they should be in about the same spot. And match up the corners. And now we're going to sew along this bottom clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and the end. See when you open it up and you have your well, this is ready to go to the gym. So now we're gonna work on this zipper. Now I'm not attaching my zipper pull because I will be separating the zipper. It is a very small bag. It's going to be very difficult to build this with the zipper attached. If you can do it, that's great. So I'm gonna take my zipper tape and I'm gonna fold it in half, just finding the midpoint mark. It makes everything easier. I'll use an air erasing marker and I'm just marking the back on the fold. And then on the right side of the tops of the exterior and the tops, which are the shorter edges of the lining, I'm going to add some of my double-sided tape. I'm using the 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape for this. And I'm just going to put it right along that short edge, like I said, on both short edges of my lining panel and both short edges of the exterior panel. And if you have that silver ink pen and it's bugging you like it's bugging me, you can grab a slightly damp cloth and just wipe it off. Okay, now let's look at our exterior panel. Laying our exterior panel right side up, take the paper off the top end, and this doesn't really matter if it's the front panel or back panel just yet, if you don't have your zipper pull on. If you have your zipper pull on, we're on the back panel, so think about which way it's going to close. But I would suggest not putting your zipper pull on yet. Then I'm going to grab my zipper tape and I'm going to lay it right side down. So right sides together with the exterior panel, and I'm going to match up those midpoints first, and then just push this against that top edge there. And the double-sided tape really is very, very helpful for attaching this zipper because this strap here. So then I'm going to take my lining panel and I'm going to take the paper off of one of the short edges on my lining panel, and I'm going to lay my lining panel right side down, right side against the back side of the zipper, and then just line it up with that exterior panel. So you can do corner to corner, or you can do midpoint marks, whatever's easiest, and just tape that down. So now you should have a little sandwich here with exterior and lining facing right sides together and the zipper sandwiched in between. And now along this little sandwiched edge that we have taped together, stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Now press that lining panel up and away from the zipper, and then press it back wrong sides together with your exterior panel. Get it nice and flat, move the handle out of the way. Now I know it's a little tricky because the handle is right there next to that zipper. But now what we want to do is we want to go to the sewing machine and we want to top stitch right along that edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do like to back stitch at the beginning and the end. So now once you have that stitched, take your exterior that's not attached to the zipper and bring it up right sides together with the zipper. Push those handles out of the way. Take the paper off your double-sided tape. Use the midpoint marks on the other end of that zipper panel to line this up and center it on the exterior and tape together. So you should have something just like this. And now take the lining panel and flip it right sides together. Take the paper off your double-sided tape and then bring the right side of that short edge up to the wrong side of your zipper and line this up corner to corner with the exterior panel. So as you can see, my zipper tape is a bit longer, which is how I want it. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Now you can see pulling these wrong sides together and top stitching this would be very, very difficult if you don't split this apart. So you have to split the zipper teeth away from one another and then flip this so it's right side out. So one side is exterior right side out, the other side is lining right side out. And then just do your best to really press down the seam by that zipper that we've been working on. Make sure you pull the handle out of the way before you top stitch, and then we'll take this to the sewing machine and just top stitch along this top edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and the end. So now you have your exterior and lining both attached to the zipper. You can see when we bring it up, it's gonna look like this. It's just so cute. Now, for this bottom seam here, it's very hard to press the whole seam open, so you can press just the edges open if you'd like, or you can press the whole seam to one side. I am just going to press the edges open, and I'm going to line up these long edges of my lining panel with my exterior panel and clip along these long edges. And if you need to, you can find the midpoint on the side of your lining panel and use that to help clip it all together. So I'm going to do this for both sides. Once again, just pressing open that bottom seam, but only on the side. I'm not worried about the whole seam being pressed open. So I'm going to take this main panel to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to baste along these two long edges, basting the lining panel and exterior panels wrong sides together at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to set this main body to the side for just a little bit. Now we're going to work on those D-rings, and I really like how these are attached. This is cool. So grab your D-ring tab, and you see you have a fold line here. I'm just going to lay my tab right side up over that template, and I'm just going to mark with a chalk pen where that fold line is. And I'm doing this on the right side of my D-ring tab. And now I'm going to flip these over, and so the D-ring tab fold is on the right, and I'm going to be focused on the left side here. So now with my two D-ring tabs facing right side up, I'm just going to add like a 1/2 of an inch long piece of double-sided tape along the other edge that does not have that chalk mark. So for me, it'd be on the left side. Just a little piece of tape here. So now I'm gonna grab one of my D-rings and I'm going to thread this onto the D-ring tab, and the back side of my tab is gonna go against the bar, the straight part of the D-ring. And what we wanna do is we wanna fold up this right side where that fold is. We're gonna fold the D-ring tab wrong sides together so that the chalk mark is right on the fold, and then we're going to take the top edge that's over here on the left and we're going to fold that and tuck it under that bottom bit, just like this. So to help hold this in place, I'm going to take the paper off of my double-sided tape and then just refold this. So you see it's just folded over one another just like that. If you have any little threads, you want to cut those off. Okay, and then I'm going to take one more very, very tiny piece of double-sided tape and I'm just going to add it to the very back here. The back of this tab would be where the folded edge is. The front is just going to be no raw edges, nice and clean. Just make sure your double-sided tape is very small. And I'm also going to use a clip to hold this in place. So repeat this with your other D-ring and D-ring tab. So now grab one of your exterior side panels and then grab the template for this. And what I did, you can see there's like a little window here, which is where your D-ring is gonna go. You can cut that out if you want. What I did was I just poked a hole on the center on the very top of this window. So I can lay this down so my exterior is right side up, my template's right side up, and I'm just gonna line up all the edges. And then I'm gonna use this silver ink pen to mark where that dot is. And then all I have to do is center this top fold of my D-ring connector where the D-ring is with that dot, and that's perfect placement. So whatever's easiest for you, always do whatever's easiest. So I'm gonna take the paper off the double-sided tape that's on the back of my little connector here and use that mark to center this. And now I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm gonna top stitch at about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance right over the bottom fold here, only along this fold part. So from one end to the other, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and leaving the tails long. And then I'm going to do another row of top stitching, just about 3/8 of an inch above that, closer towards the actual hardware. Again, going from one side to the other, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and leaving the tails long. So once I have that stitched in place, then I'm gonna do just like I did with the straps where I pull on the bobbin thread and get that top thread to the back. And this is just for a little bit of extra security. It really does help. And then you can honestly just take all the threads and divide them up and then just knot them together really well. So I'm gonna do 3 knots with all the threads just right in the center. All right, I'm gonna repeat that with my other D-ring and my other side panel. So now this is optional, but if you like to add rivets to things, now we can add a rivet. I'm gonna punch a hole right in the center of those top stitching marks on my D-ring tabs. This is going through the exterior panel and the tabs. And then you can just grab your rivets and pop them in there. And then just set these in place. So now grab your 2 exterior side panels and your 2 lining side panels and lay these wrong sides together, right sides out, and clip along all the edges. Now I'm going to take these 2 side panel units to the sewing machine and baste along all the edges of each one of these, holding the lining and exterior panels wrong sides together. Now we just have to put it all together. So make sure you have midpoints marked. I'm going to use the midpoint as the seam. I'm going to use the seam as the midpoint on this. Make sure you have your midpoints marked and visible on the top and bottom of your side panels. Sometimes you have them on the outside, but you don't have them on the lining. Just make sure you can see them everywhere. And then what we need to do now is attach our zipper pull. So I'm going to pull these panels right side out, or exterior right side out. And I'm going to line this up and attach my zipper pull. And then this gets a little tricky. I'm going to add a clip there. You could also just sew over that end over there, but you want to flip this lining side out. So carefully flip it lining side out without losing your zipper. And make sure your handles are tucked in real nice. Pull that zipper out of the way. And now I'm going to start on the side that has the zipper closed end, so not the open end. I just feel like it's a little bit easier to not lose my zipper pull if it's over here. So what I'm going to do is on this end where the zipper is closed, I'm going to take my side gusset and I'm going to lay my side gusset exteriors right sides together. So you see it's all lining side out. But first what we're going to do is we're going to just attach the top and the bottom. So use that midpoint mark on the top of your side gusset and line it up with the zipper teeth and just clip along the corners here. And now take this to the sewing machine and just baste right over pretty much where the zipper tape is at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We just want to hold this top piece together. So now I have that stitched only to the zipper part. So now I'm going to look at the bottom edge here and lining up my midpoint mark on the bottom edge of my side panel with the seam from the exterior. I'm just going to push these exteriors wrong sides together, and now I'm going to go back to the sewing machine, and I'm only stitching about 1/2 of an inch. That's it. I'm only stitching right over where this midpoint is at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now you see you have the top and bottom stitch in place, and this does make it easier, because now what we want to do is you want to pull that side panel out, and then you just want to tuck it in, lining up the edges. Now you have some pretty sharp curves here, so just do your best to go around getting it all tucked in and spread out. If you need to, you can make a couple of small cuts into the main panel, not the side panel, so it can spread around those corners. All right, now the tricky part. We're gonna sew along this clipped edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm gonna do this with the side panel lining side down, main panel lining side up. Carefully, I like to use a zipper foot for this, back stitch at the beginning and the end, use a stiletto, cut into the main panel if you need to so it can spread, but just take your time and don't worry too much. If you have pinching, this is a bag you can make those mistakes on. Once you have that stitch in place, just push out that corner, because this is an easy one to do since you have that open end, and just make sure it looks okay. I have a little bit of pinching here and there. Honestly, doesn't bother me at all. Like, you're gonna have some creasing anyways at some of these corners, but that looks so cute, does it? Look at that. How adorable, right? So stinking cute. Okay, so flip this back out, lining side out. And I'm just gonna finish off this edge with the binding, and then we'll move on to the other side. I feel like that's easier. So make sure you always are moving your zipper towards the middle if you can. Try not to lose it though. If you kept your zipper tape long like I did, you can trim that down now. But once you do that, make sure you always grab a lighter and you melt down the ends of that zipper tape, because it likes to fray. So now I have 1 inch wide water resistant canvas binding, and I'm going to take it and fold it long sides together, wrong sides together, just for about 12 to 14 inches or so. I'm not really sure how long this is. There we go. And then I'm going to go to my seam over here, and I'm just going to wrap it around. Now the pattern does have you kind of like sew it on, flip it over, have a much more polished finish. This is such a small bag. I'm not worried about it not looking polished on the inside, so I am just wrapping it around the seam. If you don't want to have the folds and the pleating that happens when you go around these corners with water resistant canvas, then I suggest you use elastic binding. That's a great option. I'm trying to keep this as easy as possible, so I'm just wrapping it around. So you can see when I get to those corners, I mean, I just fold it over itself. It's such a small bag, it's not going to be, to me, it's not going to be noticeable. If you know that it's going to be noticeable for you, then follow the instructions in the pattern and make it a little bit more tidy. We are going to wrap it around the zipper on the top as well. And then once you get back to where you started, I like to have it overhang by about 1 inch, 1/2 of an inch to 1 inch. And then just wrap it over where I started and clip in place. And now once again, I'm gonna flip this so that it's main panel lining side up, side panel down. And I'm just gonna top stitch this on at 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Once again, use a stiletto and a zipper foot. All right, so you see my method, it's a bit messy. Am I gonna notice it in the end? No. Will somebody else? Maybe. If that's you, don't do it this way. So now I'm going to pull the zipper ends that are spread apart and away from one another. I'm going to pull them together and line them up as best I can, and I'm going to stitch just right like along where the edges of my material over the zipper teeth to hold this together. I don't want to be fighting these two ends separating, so just go over it a few times to kind of pin them together. Okay, now we're going to attach the other side panel the same way we did the first one. So once again, I'm going to take my side panel and lay it exteriors, right sides together. All lining is right side out. And I'm going to focus on the top edge first, lining up the midpoint of the top edge of my side panel with those zipper teeth. And I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to baste just right over those zipper teeth, holding the top of the side panel in place to the zipper. Once the top is stitched to the zipper, we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So bottom midpoint of the side panel is going to line up with the seam between the two main panels. And then we're gonna just stitch right over that by about 1/2 inch long, you know, just a small bit, 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right, and now we're gonna just clip along the edges, doing your best to spread the main panel around those curves. And this is small enough where you can really just kind of move it around as you need to. If you feel like you really don't have enough, you can take some from the top. You don't need as much as you think you do up there. You can also clip into the main panel to help it spread around those corners on the side panel. All right, this is a little bit trickier because you have the whole bag fighting you, so really just squish it out of your way as best you can, but we're going to sew along the clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Make sure the side panel is lining side down, main panel is lining side up. Zipper foot and stiletto are helpful. Alrighty, almost done. Trim down your zipper if you have it long like I do. And then use a lighter to really clean up those edges. So once again, grab your binding and we're gonna fold this. We're gonna fold this long sides together, wrong sides together. Sometimes it's really difficult to figure out which side is the wrong side. So my rule of thumb is if you can't seem to figure out which side is the wrong side, then they're both the right side. There we go. And then I'm gonna, again, do the lazy girl's binding here by just slapping it on and wrapping it around that seam. All right, let's go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to, once again, I'm just gonna top stitch this on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, side panel facing down, main panel facing up, use a stiletto, back stitch at the beginning and the end. All right, moment of truth. Let's carefully turn this right side out. Be very gentle. How stinking cute. It's a little wrinkly because it's a wrinkly baby that just got birth. So take your time to really smush out those side seams. Get it just the way you want it. But how stinking cute is that? So I like the strap being higher up. Again, I think that this was just a mistake on my part. I think I just didn't quite understand how the stitching was supposed to attach to the main panel. Still perfectly usable, but yeah, it is better with the stitching up taller like this. So now I'm gonna thread on my little key ring here. So I'm gonna put the swivel on the key ring, and then I'm just gonna thread both straps onto this key ring. And there we go. You can clip it onto your backpack, clip it onto your gym bag, put your AirPods in it. It's so stinking cute. I hope you guys love making this. This is a fun one. Oh my gosh, how stinking adorable is this? That lightweight vinyl was just absolutely perfect for the exterior. Like I said, if you're using a vinyl, you really don't have to add stabilizer to it. Do I have perfectly, you know, smooth corners? I do not. Is it noticeable? I do not think so. And I'm pretty picky, and I think it's just the cutest. I wanted to show you what I was thinking about doing with this. Okay, so on the inside of this one, I've got some AirPods. So I'm gonna plop in my AirPods on there. And then I have my little keychain with a hook on the top. And then I'm gonna grab one of these like little wrist slinky things here, or like a hair tie even. And I'm gonna do that. Now watch. Now, when you go to the gym and you have like your thermos, you wrap it around the top of your thermos, and your thermos has its own gym bag, and then you have your gym bag, and it's adorable. I don't know. I think it's really stinking cute. They're fun to make. They're fun to use. They're great for kids, obviously, but they're also just like a great little gift for everybody. I mean, think about, I know we're not in the holiday season, but think about when we get to holiday season, you have like Secret Santa and white elephants and things like that. This is one of those things that's so adorable and funny and useful that I think it would be a hit as a gift. I just really do. So I hope you love making these dainty duffels as much as I do. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.